Welcome in, everybody, to a Monday night edition of the Torres Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Torres. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody is having a great day, and I hope you are ready for what should be a fun episode of the pod. There is only one story to react to. It is the news that Dan Hurley is back at UConn as the head coach. And I'm just going to give you, what do they call it in music? A warning label. If you do not like braggadocious, told you so, Torres, well, I hate to say it, because guess what? I basically nailed this story from the beginning. I didn't believe he was ever going anywhere. I don't even believe, if you actually look at the facts of the case, that this thing made sense at all. So everybody come on in. By the way, did not test my mic. I am literally straight from the airport. So everybody come on in, go ahead and join the conversation. But most importantly, drop a comment in the comment section. Make sure the mic is working okay. I think that it is. But we have ourselves a jam-packed show tonight, but we're going to talk about it from all angles, how it went down, why it went down in the manner that it did. And like I said, I'm straight from the airport with a lot of time to think about this. And I appreciate everybody joining us late here on a Monday night. Don't love going live at 9:30 at night, but obviously wanted to get something out for both the audience here and the podcast crowd. So everybody come on in. One quick scheduling note. Don't know how many shows we'll do this week, but the bottom line is this. I'm back. I've basically been gone for 2 weeks. I had two kind of back to things lined up. It was great. It was great to get away. It was great to see people. It was great to relax. We're going to be back here going forward for the very foreseeable future. We'll there's plenty of basketball to still get to, but we're starting to kind of phase out of basketball. What I think we'll do is probably a little bit more football stuff. I've seen some interesting football things that have caught my eye. And then I also think about 3-4 years ago, we kind of did like a college hoops kind of like what do you call it? Like off-season grades type project a couple years ago. We're probably going to bring that back, get to 1 to 2 teams a week, all the big ones, the Arkansas, the Kentuckys, the Kansases, the Indianas, the North Carolinas, the UConns, and we will talk about their off seasons. So plenty to get to, plenty of basketball left, but like I said, we're going to start to ramp down the basketball, ramp back up the football, and next thing you know it will be July. And oh, by the way, it will be time to really start talking football, obviously, as we get to closer to SEC Media Days. So everybody come on in. Everybody get ready for what should be a fun show. There is only one topic. There is no more time to waste. So let's go ahead and get to the topic of the day. And the topic of the day, there is but one story, frankly, not just for this pod, but for basically, I don't want to say all of sports, because obviously the NBA finals are going on. But at the same time, there is one story that everyone in this moment cares about. If you're a basketball fan, if you're a sports fan, and specifically if you are a college sports fan that listens to this show. That story is UConn. It is Dan Hurley. The news breaks Thursday. I got back from my first trip on Thursday. That news breaks. And if you listen to that show, listen, like I said, I basically nailed it. And I basically stand by what I ended up saying on that show. I said, I don't buy this. It doesn't make sense. The mental math doesn't add up. The basic facts of the story don't even make sense. And so it was funny today. I saw all the reports and Woj is on TV and, he really struggled with it and he could have gone either way. The Lakers wooed the crap out of him. I don't believe that he was ever seriously considering going to take the Lakers job. And I'll take it a step further. Listen, I think this was a great PR marketing spin for him, as Dan Hurley now gets to say, I turned down the Lakers to stay at UConn. And so when I look at this, let's just get into the meat and bones, and let me explain to you why I don't really believe this was a tough decision. I don't believe he was ever seriously taking the job. And it goes back to what I said on Thursday. I said, if you look at the simple facts of the case, basic facts, right? And one thing, I think I've said this before. I've always thought to myself that I would have loved to have once upon a time been a lawyer. And the reason I say that is because, one, I love arguing, just ask my wife. But two, on top of that, what I really love to do is I love to look at something that is complicated, put the puzzle pieces together and figure out, okay, why did this happen in the manner that it did? Obviously, that's why I think I would make a good lawyer. And so I bring it up because if you just look at the facts of this case, it doesn't even make sense. It doesn't even make sense that he was seriously considering taking this job. So let's go back to Thursday. The story breaks. And let's just even put aside, by the way, the basketball stuff. The idea that you got to coach LeBron after you said on JJ Redick, or LeBron and Bronny, after you said on JJ Redick's podcast that you guys at UConn recruit parents as much as you do players. That you don't deal with crazy parents, basically, for lack of a better term. You don't deal with let's even put aside the basketball stuff and the things that could be objective or subjective and talk about things that are fact in stone. So first off, and I still go back to the first report from Woj. On Thursday, we get a report from Woj that Dan Hurley is the favorite, or he has been the leading candidate for this job all along. Well, first of all, it doesn't make sense. That report, of course, comes 2 days after Shams says that JJ Redick is the overwhelming favorite. And by the way, this is the part that trips me up from the JJ Redick perspective. My boy, JJ Redick was asked about his future before the NBA Finals, and he said, I'll address my future after the Finals. Well, guess what? You don't have anything to address if you're not taking another job, if you've not verbally or at least kind of pretty much been told you're probably getting that job. And so what I think happened is probably word got back to the Lakers that Dan Hurley would at least be interested to have a conversation signified by the Lakers. But again, I go back to the facts of the case don't make sense, because if you think about it, what was the first thing in that Woj report? That Dan Hurley has been the favorite for the job all along. Well, why would you wait 5 weeks to interview him? I mean, listen, we have a very smart audience on this show. You guys and girls are incredibly smart. Many of you are in management positions, hiring positions, whatever. Have you ever heard of any job having a primary candidate that they wait 5 weeks to talk to? And oh, by the way, they talk to 4 or 5 other candidates first. That's not how the hiring process works. And so that fact just simply didn't make sense. He's been the favorite. Why'd you wait 5 weeks? By the way, what if Dan Hurley wants to coach in the NBA and he interviews with somebody else and whoever, the Cleveland Cavaliers get him? You know, it's just, so that from the beginning didn't make sense. Why would he be the favorite, but you waited 5 weeks to talk to him? So that was one. Two, I also think that basically everything that Dan Hurley did over the course of this weekend, I know that everything that was posted on social media, whatever, was like, what does this mean? What does that mean? It could mean this, but it could mean that. But what does it mean? If you actually think about his behavior over the course of the weekend, there's nothing in it that makes you think that he was seriously taking this job, okay? So first off, and by the way, I know what people are going to say, oh, you don't fly across country if you're not interested in a job. Well, one, maybe he'd be, maybe he did just want to hear the spiel. But more importantly, here's the other thing. If you are trying to kick in the butt your employer to get stuff done, yeah, that's what you do. Guess what happens when, if you tell your fiance or you tell your girlfriend you're going to propose and you don't, and she's waiting around for a ring, guess what's going to happen? She might decide, you know what? You don't give me this ring pretty soon, I might go see what else is out there. And so that's what Dan Hurley was doing to me. But even just think about this weekend. Think about since the first report came out. What has happened in the moments since, okay? Well, first off, let's just very quickly, because I'm already going long, but I'm fired up, go through the time frame of everything involving Dan Hurley from the visit to the Lakers. By the way, I had a Lakers buddy of mine bring this up. He said, first of all, there was no leaks about where they were at, did they have dinner, whatever. But if you think about the timing of it, here's my question. How long was Dan Hurley actually even in LA? Okay, so let's just think about that. So UConn had practice on Thursday. The reports are that he was flying to LA to meet with the team on Friday. Well, guess where he was on Saturday night? At a Billy Joel concert at Madison Square Garden. And so I know the logistics of the Northeast portion of the country, okay? And so if he's at a Billy Joel concert by 7 p.m. on a Saturday night, keep this in mind. He doesn't live in New York. He can't just, ride the F train or the 7 train to Madison Square Garden. I know where he lives in Connecticut, And that's probably about, when I say I live, I don't know like the house, but I know the town that he lives in. I know how to get to New York from there. It's probably about a 4.5 hour commute to get to New York City for a concert. So he probably had to leave Connecticut 2:30, gets there for the concert. But if he's leaving Connecticut at 2:30, then what time did he actually get back from California? I think there's a possibility he didn't even stay one night overnight in California because he flew out Friday. We know they had practice Thursday, and he was at a concert by Saturday night, which means that he probably had to be back in Connecticut by about noon on Saturday. So that right away, as soon as I saw him at the concert, I'm like, this is not serious. And then, oh, by the way, the assistant coach, Luke Murray, of course, took the video that was posted on social media. They're smiling. And one thing I will say about Dan Hurley, and this is more of an opinion than an actual fact about the time frame and da-da-da and this and that, the video to me, I don't believe Dan Hurley would have posted or had posted if he was seriously contemplating this job. One, I don't think he shows up at a concert. I think that he's in his bunker, really thinking about it, going hard, this and that, whatever, blah, 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 blah. But I don't think that he even goes to a concert if he's seriously considering taking it. And I certainly don't think he has his assistant coach post that, because obviously his players are going to see that. His fans are going to see that. And I don't think if he was leaving after all these great years, he's going to be almost mocking the fan base and certainly mocking his current players by being out on a Saturday night. And so in the end, I don't really think he really considered it. I will say the one funny thing, I will admit this, there was one moment and one moment only where I did think that he might actually take the job, and you're going to laugh at this. It was right at the end when his wife showed up at the facility. Now, it's funny because a lot of people I've talked to on today, Monday, basically have said the opposite, that the wife showing up, there's no way she's going to show up if they're leaving. I'd say it's the exact opposite. I was thinking as soon as I saw that, that was the only time that I was like, oh, I don't know about that. Why would the wife show up on a random Monday if they're just going to practice? I thought maybe it was I love you guys like sons, but the two of us are packing up out of here. But Dan Hurley officially does decide to come back. I don't ever think it was that serious. And again, to be fair, to be clear, this isn't UConn Homer guy. I'm just telling you, I think one day he probably will pursue the NBA, but it's probably going to be a Northeast job. It's probably going to be the Knicks. I don't believe he seriously considered this one. As a matter of fact, really the two reasons, because I know that's what the next thing people will ask will be. And by the way, we will get to the comment section in a minute. So drop your questions, your comments, your thoughts, whatever. But I'll also say the question that I got a lot was, well, if he was never considering it, why would he go through the process? Well, I think there's two reasons. One, I do think, like I said, it was to give his employer a kick in the butt. And that just is simple bargaining, simple, what's the right word? Simple, not leveraging, but like basically, I guess what I'm trying to say is like the first reason is I just think that he, in my opinion, was just trying to get the process moving along, to get the things done that he wants done. I do think part of this was, again, a negotiation play. By the way, that was the other thing. There's no news at all, and the update just so happens to come before the NBA Finals game last night on Sunday night. I'm just telling you, it all felt totally staged to me. And again, let's get back on track. Now, the bigger question is, why did he decide to do this in the manner that he did? I'll be honest, I think it's two things. I think one is the very obvious thing that I just started going down the path of, which is that I believe that he did this to get the whole process moving, is that clearly he wants a new contract for himself. I was told even at the Final Four that has been in the works. But if it was in the works at the Final Four, you win a second straight title 2+ months ago at this point, and it's not done yet, then yeah, you got to move the process along. And so I believe he did that. Obviously, you saw the governor of Connecticut speaking out about this situation on Monday. And so essentially when it's all the way up to the governor, that means that it's pretty serious. And that means that this thing better get done, or there's going to be a lot of mad people in a lot of places. And so first off, I think he did this to really get this process moving. Like I said, I think he's going to get a new contract. I think certainly his his full staff, but certainly the two assistants that we know are very viable head coaching candidates in their own right, Kamani Young and Luke Murray, I believe they will get new coaching gigs. or new contracts, excuse me. By the way, that's why everyone's like, why aren't they getting head coaching jobs? It's like because they're making really, really good money as assistants at UConn. And so they're going to get new deals. And then I think really what this was from Dan Hurley, I'm going to tell you what it was. And somebody framed this to me in the best way possible. This was letting the world know, if I'm coming back to UConn, we are running this like what it is, which is the best basketball program in America. Because the one thing, and I know a lot of other people have mentioned this, and all the people that cover college get this, but UConn obviously financially as an athletic department doesn't make the money that virtually all of their competition in the blue blood sphere do. They don't have big time college football. Unfortunately, we've been through the whole thing. You know, when I say big time, I mean, obviously they're not in one of the now Power 4 conferences. And so when you're talking about SEC teams making whatever, 60, 70 million a year, when you're talking about Big Ten teams making 60, 70 million a year, when you're talking about even the ACC teams making like 34, 35 a year, when you're talking about that, UConn is not in that same stratosphere. And so Dan Hurley basically said, like, look, if I'm coming back, I don't care where the money comes from, but it better be coming from somewhere, because if you expect me to keep this program at this standard, then I need to know that it's how we travel, my staff, nutrition, strength and conditioning, anything that I need, it has to be the best of the best. You want me to compete with Kansas? You want me to compete with Kentucky? You want me to compete with UCLA? You want me to compete with all these SEC schools? Well, you got to put me in position to succeed. So that's the first reason. Now, the second thing, which I didn't really consider, and I probably should have, you know, the real reason that I think that he went through this whole process, I think it's for the recruiting element of it. I really, in my heart of hearts, truly believe that a lot of this has to do with recruiting. Is that Dan Hurley, as I said, has established UConn as the best program in college basketball. But you know what takes the conversation about Dan Hurley and the UConn Huskies to another stratosphere? Be in the news for 5 days being pursued by the biggest brand in the NBA. Now, I've said the Lakers job is not good. I was dead right about that. It took people days to catch up on that one. But the Lakers still have a huge brand, and they do draw eyeballs, and they are a big draw. And so when I bring this up to say is that it is good for the UConn brand to be in the news for 4 or 5 days with your coach being heavily courted by the Los Angeles Lakers. And so now he gets to walk into every home, every high school in America, and basically tell those parents, those moms, those dads, those kids, hey, I turned down the Lakers. Yeah, I'm staying in stores. You coming with me or not? We doing this or not? And that is the one thing. And what I want to do, I'll come back. We'll talk a little bit about what this means for UConn and also a little bit the Lakers as well. But I just bring it up because that is the one thing that I'm thinking. I remember last summer after that first national championship, I remember there was a kid named Ahmad Noel that committed to the Huskies. I bring it up because I remember doing a segment at the time where I basically said, I think Dan Hurley is going to go to another level in recruiting. And I think he is officially there. I think Liam McNeely was that first moment where it's like, oh, he's going to be able to get pretty much anybody that he wants right now. Like, I was even thinking about this. Like, if Cooper Flagg comes out of high school this year, I think he probably chooses UConn over Duke. Now, Duke obviously had the years-long head start, and then obviously UConn did a great job to make up ground. But I just bring it up because I think if Cooper Flagg came out of high school now, this year, if he was going into his senior year, I think there's a possibility that UConn is absolutely in the conversation. So for UConn, I believe this was about recruiting. I believe it's about Dan Hurley saying, I was the biggest story in basketball during the NBA Finals, and you want to come with me? You want to be great? You want to do incredible things? Come to Stores. So I'll tell you what I do want to do want to take a quick break, do want to come back. When I come back, what we're going to do is talk a little bit about what's next in Stores, because I do think there are some big picture ramifications. Also, we got to talk about how bad the Lakers screwed this thing up. Producer Matt is off today, final day off for him. I was not planning on doing a show, of course, until all this happened. And so because of it, we are going to try and do the quick little video presentation or whatever you want to call it. But I'll tell you what, let's get the merch video going. We'll take a quick break. Be right back. Before we do, many of you ask me all the time, Torres, what can I do to help support the show. You give me hours and hours and hours of content every single week. What can I do to help you? Well, I'll tell you what, do me a quick favor. Check out the Aaron Torres Media merchandise store for all of your team-specific shirts, hats, and more, all available at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. A lot of you wondering, Torres, what can I get in that merch store? Well, first of all, we got our brand new Hope and Pope Kentucky basketball t-shirts. That's right. Mark Pope has arrived. He is here to save the day. Get your Hope and Pope t-shirts there. Also, Arkansas fans, the Big Pig Invasion is here. You can get your tees there. Basketball School Alabama shirts. More Hurley 2024 UConn shirts for your tailgates at Rentschler Field, your games at the XL Center or Gamble. And oh, by the way, your Mike effing Woodson gear for Indiana. If you love football, we got you covered too. We got more Dion shirts and hats than we even know what to do with. The freeze warning has hit the plains. Auburn fans, grab your freeze warning tees now. And of course, our new era, new rules shirt applies to Nebraska football and its incredible fan base. We have more coming for the fall, plenty in stock right now. So make sure to check out the Aaron Torres Media merch store at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. And you can always hit me up with any questions. Aaron Torres Podcast Questions @gmail.com. All right, everybody, I am back. Good to be back. I do want to stay on the topic of the UConn Huskies, stay on the topic of the Los Angeles Lakers, stay on the topic of Dan Hurley. Drop some of your comments, your questions in. We will get to them. By the way, I saw one comment about Torres talking crap about Pam. Pam, of course, is the diehard UK fan that comes into this chat every single day and fights for her Wildcats. I respect the heck out of Pam. I don't know who said I was talking crap, but that couldn't have been the furthest thing from the truth. Pam, I love you. You're the best. Not love you like, as a fan, as a listener of the show. Genuinely appreciate your support. So let's go ahead and get back. Let's get back to talking a little bit about this. By the way, fresh off of a plane. If I'm a little bit disheveled, please forgive me. Getting back to reality. And like I said, we're going to get back to normal shows, more than just Dan Hurley in the coming days, but do want to stick with Dan Hurley and the Huskies for one last show to really just finish this out and really talk about it. By the way, didn't even mention, we of course have our Torres on UConn Twitter page, all UConn content all the time. Make sure to follow Torres on Twitter. All right, let's keep the conversation going. Let's talk a little bit about the Husky. Let's talk about two things, really. Like, what's next for UConn? What's next for the Lakers? The Lakers are a dumpster fire, by the way. By the way, first of all, as far as the Lakers are concerned, I guess from the UConn perspective, there really isn't a ton else for me to add now that I'm really thinking about it. But I do think that's going to take them to another stratosphere. I do think Dan Hurley is absolutely going to use this in recruiting. And I should mention, by the way, and I heard this conversation a lot, and I do agree. I do think this was an important moment for college sports, okay? And I know this is cliche, but I think it's true. I think we all understand that at the end of the day, college sports is going through a lot of change in a hurry, okay? And we can talk about, is NIL good, is NIL bad? Is the transfer portal good, is the transfer portal bad? I do think this was an important win for college basketball. You've lost Nick Saban in football. You've lost Jim Harbaugh in football. By the way, think about the Jim Harbaugh hiring process versus the Dan Hurley process. Jim Harbaugh was in LA for like 8 days back and forth with the Chargers. Dan Hurley was there for like 8 hours. Anyway, but I do think this is an important moment for college sports because listen, we've lost Nick Saban. We've lost Jay Wright in the last couple of years, Nick Saban and Jim Harbaugh in college basketball and football. And in basketball, we lost Coach K. We lost Roy Williams. We lost Jay Wright. And I do believe these were all things that were done as a direct reflection of decisions that were made as a direct reflection of the chaos of college sports. NIL transfer portal. I think they've all kind of either said it or unofficially said it. Now, some of them, Nick Saban was 71 years old, but I still believe if there was a little bit more structure in college sports right now, I do believe that Nick Saban would probably still be coaching college football. So I do think this was an important moment for UConn basketball. I do think it was an important moment for college basketball. I also don't think, by the way, I do think that's becoming a little bit of an overstated thing. I think, yes, it's a little bit chaotic. I do think, yes, people with options now have to consider them. But Jim Harbaugh went to the NFL because he did everything he could at Michigan. He brought them back to glory. He won them a championship. He wanted to go win a Super Bowl. Dan Hurley probably will someday go to the NBA, and it's going to be to challenge himself at the highest level. It is not going to be, it's not going to be because, I hate NIL, I hate the trend. That may play a role, but that's not the reason. I don't believe that's the reason he took this whole meeting. I think he just wanted to see what it was about, but I don't think he was ever really considering it. I will say from the UConn perspective, I'm doing kind of my updated top 25 right now. And I will say really quickly, UConn is in position to potentially three-peat next year. Now, I'll just be honest. There's a lot of good teams. I believe Alabama is on paper the best team in college basketball. Alabama and Kansas are the top two. I think Kansas probably has about a better top 6 or 7. Alabama 1-13. Every single one of those dudes can play, and they're a really well-constructed team as well. But I bring it up because there isn't anybody in the sport that UConn can't beat, that they can't compete with, that they would need this team to lose in the first round, in the first weekend of the tournament, and if they saw them, they would have no chance. And so when I look at this UConn thing, I do believe they can three-peat. I don't necessarily think they will, but guess what? Nobody thought UConn was going to win back-to-back this year. And so because of it, in my opinion, I just kind of sit there and I do think they're going to be in good position. And I do think that was part of the reason that Dan Hurley wanted to come back, is because he is going for history. And people say there's nothing left to accomplish. It's like, yeah, there is. Win a three-peat. If you win a third one, you try to be like Oklahoma softball and win a fourth one. And so it's not as though there's nothing left. And this is a once-in-a-lifetime moment for that man and that team. Listen, Dan Hurley could be a great coach for 10 more years and never win another national championship. By the way, it'd still be an incredible career. But the point I'm trying to make, he could coach 10 more years and never win another national championship. He could coach 10 more years and certainly almost, I would love to know, like some mathematician come up with it. He's almost certainly never going to be in position to go back to back to back. Like I said, Tom Amansky, this is, nobody's gone back to back to back since Tom Amansky's AAU teams a million years ago. So like the point I'm trying to make is that people said there's nothing left for him to accomplish. Yeah, I do actually think there is quite a bit. Come back, win a third one. And by the way, you know what else I believe? If he decides to stay in college, I think he could be on the Mount Rushmore. Now, I think it's unfair to have that conversation today, but I do think if we start extrapolating it out, he's 51 years old. I mean, Coach K and Roy Williams coached into their 70s. I'm not saying he will. I'm not saying he's got 20 years left in him, but it isn't inconceivable. And so you get 20 more years with 2 under your belt. You figured out the system. And as I just said, that recruiting is about to go crazy. I mean, listen, I don't want to put anything out there, but could be talking about a third one, a fourth one. I mean, it's not crazy. 20 more years. We could be talking about 5, 6, 7 Coach K type stuff. And so I think that weighed on him. And I think that is going to weigh on him with all of these decisions. But as I also said, too, I do think at some point he's probably going to want to scratch that NBA itch. We'll see how college sports evolves. We'll see what UConn's place in it is with no major TV money attached to it because of football. But I think right now there's still a lot for him to accomplish. And that is the thing that I kind of want to close with, because there were 2 narratives this weekend that I heard from everybody in the media that I just fundamentally disagreed with. The first one was that there was nothing left for Dan Hurley to accomplish. The second thing was that, if the Lakers call, you just don't turn down the Lakers. No one turns down the Lakers. I'm like, really? Y'all been watching basketball lately? Like, is it just me? And I will say this, in defense of a lot of good reporters, this started to come out over the weekend, and maybe it's because I live in LA, and maybe it's because, Fox Sports Radio, all my friends, all my buddies, they're all Lakers fans. But maybe you just have to be an LA person to understand they've been kind of a chaotic, dysfunctional, disorganized franchise over the last decade. Like, the only reason that they've been relevant since Kobe Bryant retired, since essentially the late Dr. Jerry Buss passed away, the original owner of the team, basically the only reason they've been relevant is because of the fact that LeBron James, who we could criticize LeBron, he's still a great player even at going on 40 years old. The only reason they're relevant, they were awful for about 5 years. Then the best player in the world at the time decided, I want to live in LA. And so he came to LA, and now they're kind of a tire fire again. And so I bring it up because I heard this notion like, oh, it's the Lakers. You don't say, it's like people say no the Lakers all the time. Their last coach, Darvin Ham, had never been a head coach before he got the opportunity. Now, I think Darvin Ham's a good coach. I wanted to fire him in the first place. He just made the Western Conference Finals last year in year one. And I think it's a Denver was a bad matchup thing more than it was the coach was incapable thing. But at the same time, I just bring it up to say, like, this kind of shows you what a dysfunctional, disorganized mess this thing is. And so actually, to me, that's kind of the bigger takeaway. And what was interesting, talking to some Lakers friends of mine, this is the thing I think is interesting. The Lakers have screwed this up 7 ways to Sunday, okay? Because I think the fan base was kind of okay with, this JJ Redick guy that talked crap about Torres on social media, this JJ Redick guy, we'll take him as our head coach. We don't love it, but he's kind of a big name. He's a big candidate. He's interviewing for other jobs, whatever. And I don't think they loved it to begin with, but they were okay with it. And then this Dan Hurley thing happens. You fly him out. You give him kind of an insulting job offer. What was the final number? Like 72 million, 76 million over 6 years? First of all, if I'm coaching LeBron, I'm sorry. I want a 10-year contract because he's going to try to run me out after 6 months. So I'm asking for minimum 7-8 years. They offer you 6 years, 78. I think it came out to a little over $11 million a year. I mean, UConn's going to get you to 9.5. What are we even talking about here? And so to me, the Lakers just screwed this up, and they just look so bad, and it's so embarrassing. That was another thing. Like, I just don't think they have a lot of money. That was a thing that I kept going back to is people like, oh, it's the Lakers. It's like they're kind of a poverty franchise if we're being perfectly honest. Not historically, but at this moment in time, everybody knows they're owned by the Buss family. All the Buss family's assets are in the team. This isn't this isn't Mark Cuban, who I know he's not even technically the owner of the Mavs anymore, who made his money in something else, and now he owns a team or did own a team. It's not Steve Ballmer from the Los Angeles Clippers. The team is their money. So they just can't offer like 100 million, 150, whatever it would take. But that was what it was going to take. And so you fly him out. You kind of run a poverty search. You get played by him. You don't even give him the offer that would make him seriously consider coming. Because again, we talk about this all the time. We talked about it with Kentucky when Kentucky was in search of a head coach. What did I say at the time? At least credit to Kentucky. Kentucky was prepared. Now, they didn't officially offer anything because I don't believe he let it get to that point. But, if Matt Jones's report was what? 100 million, it was like 12.5 million a year. They were going to make him the highest paid coach in college sports. So at least Kentucky still operates like it is the best job in college basketball. The Lakers are not the best job in the NBA. And so now I just think they're in such a lose-lose situation because at the end of the day, like, what's happening right now? It's that your fan base was finally getting around to the idea of JJ Redick. Then you have a chance to hire this guy. They think they're going to get him. You miss on that guy. Now Redick is a very public number 2. But here's the other thing. You just offered Dan Hurley $11 million a year. I don't think you can offer JJ Redick $4 million a year and expect to get him. I think he'd be like, where's the other $7 million you were offering the other guy? So they are so screwed. They are just a poverty franchise. And listen, we don't talk much NBA on this show. And we don't have to do it today. But like this idea that, there's some great franchise. They're a mess. They're dysfunctional. And guess what? They're going to hire LeBron's podcast and drinking buddy. They're going to be terrible next year because they're just not good enough. They have no ways to get better. This is, again, why the whole thing never made sense. Dan Hurley is an incredibly intelligent man, okay? Dan Hurley, like I said, I've been told everything he thinks about it. Like he's an overthinker in a good way. He knows the situation with LeBron James. He knows what it would be like to coach LeBron and the idea that pretty much he's gotten every single coach that's basically ever worked under him fired. Like, Dan Hurley knows what's up. He gets it. He gets that we're gonna have to draft Bronny. By the way, that was another part of the whole Lakers thing. Was there's not even a promise that LeBron is coming back, and so now you got to start over from scratch. It just never made sense. It just never made sense. Just never made sense. And so now the Lakers, listen, they're a poverty franchise, man. I'm just gonna say what it is. I don't work for the Lakers. It doesn't matter to me. I don't got to stay with being friends with Jeannie Buss. They run it like a mom and pop shop. And this is big boy sports, and you're asking a big boy coach to leave his job. So now what you're going to go do, you're going to hire JJ Redick, just like you always said, just like the whole plan was to keep LeBron happy. It's going to be a disaster. JJ Redick's probably going to get fired in a year and a half. LeBron will probably retire shortly after that, and this place is just such a mess. So that's really all my Dan Hurley Lakers content. I do want to get to the questions very quickly, get to any questions that were there. I did see people were fighting in the chat. This is a good one. This is from, I'm just going to go from the top. But first of all, again, shout out to Pam, because people were like, oh, Torres doesn't like Pam, but it's like, no, Pam's the best. So first of all, so Tommy says, let's see here. Who is it? KLS. You look pretty scruffy, Torres. I know. I got straight off the plane and came straight here. Getting a haircut this week. We'll get cleaned up, all that good stuff. Ashley says, love all your podcasts. Thanks for keeping us updated. Thank you, Ashley. We appreciate your support. Good one from Bill. How does Torres turn this into a focus on Calipari? No Calipari today, although somebody else had an interesting comment about Mark Pope. I will not read that here. But UConn's crowd for national championship celebration, Imagine turning down that much money. This guy got even more respect to his name. Steven, I think that's an important thing. So Steven says, imagine turning down that much money. Well, one, it's a lot of money, $78 million. Obviously, I'm not dumb. I'm never getting a $78 million contract offer over any amount of years. And I'm assuming very likely most of you would not either. But it doesn't change the fact that, he's probably going to get, I think it's possible he gets more from UConn. Now it's going to be over a longer time. It could be another extension for but like the point is, if a guy's probably going to make 9 at his current job and you're really trying to woo him, you can't offer him 11. It is insulting. But now, as I said too, Dan Hurley gets to go into every recruit's home and say, yeah, I turned down the Lakers. I turned down LeBron. I wasn't interested. Now, as I said, with the Kentucky stuff, you never, it never got down that road with Kentucky. So you can't say you technically turned down Kentucky when you never had an offer, as far as I'm aware of. Does not mean, though, that you can't say that you turned down the Lakers, which you absolutely did. Let's get to a couple other questions. Well, Torres, you were right. Listen, I said it. I said on Thursday, does not pass the smell test. And everybody, oh, Torres, UConn homer, it's over. Give it up. No, I was dead right. I don't believe at any point he was ever seriously considering this job. If you're seriously considering the job, you don't run a practice on Thursday night, fly across country for less than a day, fly back, go to a concert that night. He was not ever, I don't believe, ever seriously considering it. Listen, when he does his first interviews, he's going to do, the whole, it was the toughest decision I've ever made. I don't think it was. I don't think it was really that tough for him. Again, I think there's going to be a time where he probably does go to the NBA. As a UConn fan, I am embracing for it. And by the way, somebody asked me this today. Does this become a Jim Harbaugh thing where he talks to the NBA every year? Maybe. But I think it's got to be the right situation. And 1 to 2 good jobs is going to open up every year. And to me, a good job is the Denver Nuggets. A good job is the Oklahoma City Thunder right now. A good job is the Dallas Mavericks right now. I don't necessarily think that a good job is the Lakers just because they're a big brand. And so, look, left Rhode Island to come to UConn, left, Wagner to go to Rhode Island, left high school to go to Wagner. So he's left teams before. I'm not naive enough to believe he'll retire a UConn guy, but I just never believed this was the job for him. Steven says, who wouldn't mind? Hey, who wouldn't want the free trip to LA? Imagine having that class and level of respect from people in your business sector kissing your butt all night. I agree. Let's see what else. LeBron wants his role to coach his team. They at least know when he's bitter. Jimmy says also something else that probably shouldn't be shared. Let's see here. What else? The Lakers are a dumpster. I do agree with that. Lakers better get a super duper team for LeBron's swan song. I agree with that as well, man. I agree with that as well. But I don't think they're going to. And I think that was part of the reason why this was never going to be a thing, because Dan Hurley LeBron is the antithesis of anything that Dan Hurley ever wants to deal with. You got an overinflated ego. I don't believe LeBron's good enough to win you a championship at 40 as your best player. He wears down late in games, which is totally understandable because he is 40 years old, 39 going on 40. But I don't believe that you can win a championship with him as your best player, not in this era, not in this moment. By the way, we have past 10 p.m. Eastern time. For all of you still up, I appreciate your support. Drop any questions in the comments section. Let's get to a couple more. By the way, producer Matt will be back on for the next show. And boy, oh boy, am I happy to see him because doing this, all that. Pam asked, do I hate you? No, Pam, you are what they call in the business a P1 listener. You're here every night. You're supporting us. So I appreciate you, Pam. Here you go. Let's see. Let's get to some more questions. Yes, this is a great one. B999. I think this is accurate. B999. You get, if there was a silver star, if there was a gold star for best questions on this show, this would be it, or comments, because he said, this is what B99 said. I told you guys the other day, this was all about Dan regretting not playing the UK fiasco to his advantage and regretting it in hindsight and wanting to show UConn love so he would return. I agree with that. I think, listen, like I said, I was told at the Final Four, the contract was on, was in the red zone, that they were getting there. It was going to be done soon. It's 2 months later and they're not there yet. And so it's like, if I'm Dan Hurley, I absolutely would do the same thing. And so people are like, why would you fly across country if you're not taking the job? Well, I don't know. Because you're trying to put pressure on your boss to get done what you want. Again, I used a badly worded analogy earlier, but it's like the young woman that's waiting for an engagement ring. Her husband, her boyfriend's not giving it to her. She might have to say, like, crap or get off the pot. Like, you got a deadline. If not, guess what? The guy from accounting will ask me if I was free for dinner tomorrow night. I might have to take him up on that offer. And I think that's a great point, is that he could have used the Kentucky fiasco to his advantage, but he did not. Let's keep it going. Duke and Cal will still be top recruiters. I don't disagree with that. UConn's not going to get everybody. There's only 13 roster spots, but I do think UConn's going to be in the mix for a lot more of these guys. Let's see. Here we go. Pam, a lot of Pam commentary in the chat. Pam is a diehard. She is the best. We appreciate her support. Jimmy said, I told you, Pam, he was talking about you. And I was like, dude, Pam's the best. All right. Let's see here. What else we got? A couple more. Jimmy, yes. I love Pam. She's the best. He won back-to-back titles. If that didn't fire him up, nothing will. I agree. I'm not totally sure what that means, but I agree. B99 then threw off keyboard. Let's go. Don't forget Jim Boeheim. Jim Boeheim is another stuff that leave. B99 again with another good one. Lakers were a distraction, if anything, and proved he can leave at any time, and saying just the opposite to recruits. Think about what you're saying, Torres. Yeah, exactly. The Lakers was the thing to prove, hey, if you guys aren't taking this seriously, then I might have to find somebody else who does. Let's see who else. If there's any other questions before we get out of here. Let's see here. A lot of no team went undefeated since 75. It's like that for a reason. Beard is kind of scruffy. Oh, Pam. I like Torres' beard. It's kind of scruffy. And his light, almost UK button-up. Listen, I'm wearing like Carolina blue tonight, Pam, okay? All right, let's go. What else before we get out of here? Hurley is the king of stores, and he'd be a minion in LA. I don't disagree with that. I think that's part of it, is that he's got a good thing going. And that's the thing. When you are, and this is part of the thing about the money, is when somebody has a good job, when somebody is happy, when you are trying to recruit somebody out of a good job, you have to go above and beyond. And so the idea that, the Lakers were only going to offer a touch more than what the UConn is eventually going to get him to, it's just idiotic. It's just bad on all fronts from the Lakers. Let's see what else before we get out of here. LeBron controlling. Yes, I agree. This was a good one from B99. LeBron envies the chicken man's money. That's, of course, John Tyson, the booster. And I agree with that. Is like the Lakers need themselves a chicken man. John Tyson needs to do somebody a favor. You know how the Lakers get relevant? Hire what you call it? Sell the team to John Tyson. The Lakers are a mess, man. All right, let's get out of here on a couple more. Let's see. Okay. Can you confirm that JJ Redick is only a name and not and not a descriptive term? Cannot. I'm going to stay out of that. Week to week, I just don't like that dude. Aaron couldn't stop talking about. Okay, let's see here. Okay, I'm wearing toilet paper. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. You guys, this is just going whatever. All right. So last one, somebody asked about Will Riley potentially committing to Kentucky. We'll get to all that stuff this week. Okay. So I think that's it. So this is the plan going forward. So first of all, we appreciate your support. It is time for me to get out of here. So this is the plan going forward. So first off, so a couple things here. Okay. One, we'll be back sometime this week. I don't know if we'll do a show tomorrow, but we're getting pretty close. I do want to start talking more football. There's some interesting things in college football that I saw that really caught my attention. So we'll start talking about that. And then I said this off the top for people just joining the show. My other idea is this. About 3 or 4 years ago when I was first starting this YouTube channel, to kind of wrap the college basketball portal cycle, we did these basically off-season evaluations, like when the rosters were finally together, grading them out. How did they do? Blah, 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 this and that. I think we're going to start doing those on future episodes. So maybe on the next episode, we'll talk whatever the big story is. And then we'll do an off-season recap of Kentucky and an off-season recap of Kansas. And then next one, we'll talk the next big story and we'll do Louisville and Indiana. We'll go on and on down the list. Just because I think it's a fun way to kind of wrap up the college hoops offseason and really do that. And then, like I said, it's already June 10th as I've been away. And spring or SEC Media Days is coming up here in like a month. And so because of it, I think that'll be a quick way to wrap. But I'll tell you what, do think it is time for me to get out of here. If you're not subscribed to the pod, please make sure to do so. Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Music, wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, make sure to rate and review the show. Go and give us a quick 5 stars. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, all that good stuff. Make sure you're following on social media at Aaron_Torres on Twitter, at Aaron Torres Pod on Instagram, Aaron Torres Pod also on TikTok, Aaron Torres Podcast Questions at gmail.com, Aaron Torres Podcast Questions at gmail.com. All for today's show. Appreciate your support. And it is time for me to get out of here. Shout out to Torrent Craig. Shout out to Rachel, who hate his voice. Shout out to JJ Redick, you F-head. Unblock me, bro. Torres, you're a jerk. Brandon McCoy. We'll get to his recruitment, #1 player in the class of 2026. Somebody's asking about it. We will get to it in a future show. I don't think there's anything like absolutely pressing on it, so we'll get to that at some point. But I appreciate your support. Hope everybody have a great day. We will be back soon. New episode of Aaron Torres Pod coming. Appreciate all of you.